Before we start the show today, this is our final reminder that our Franchise Your Business prices are going up June 1st. But the great news is that if you sign up for our franchise blueprint or put an initial deposit down by the end of this month, by May 31st, you can lock in our current pricing for when you're ready to actually move forward with franchising. You can take advantage of this by sending me an email, tom@bigskyfranchiseteam.com, or your contact at our company, or fill out a contact form on our website. Just go to bigskyfranchiseteam.com and fill that out. We must receive your deposit by May 31st. So if you wait until after May 31st, it's going to cost more. So take the initiative now. You're not just saving money, you're also embarking on a journey to explore the best growth option for your business, which hopefully can lead to a brighter future for your company. This offer will not be extended beyond May 31st, so please reach out to us right away. And now, on to the show. Welcome to the Multiply Your Success podcast, where each week we help growth-minded entrepreneurs and franchise leaders take the next step in their expansion journey. I'm your host, Tom.For, CEO of Big Sky Franchise Team, and happy Memorial Day. And I'd just like to open with a big thank you to all of those people who have given the ultimate sacrifice while serving our country. And today is also the unofficial start to summer, which means in most places, kids are graduating, finishing school, and looking forward to the summer. But it also means that if you have high schoolers, you might be thinking about college. And if you have kids at home, how are you planning to pay for college? And did you know that as a business owner, there are different requirements for how your income is factored in to need-based aid and how that's all calculated? Well, in today's episode, we interview Brad Baldridge, who shares with us some tips on how to tame the high cost of college, especially for business owners. Now, Brad is one of the nation's leading college financial experts. He teaches families the best ways to plan, save, and pay for college so they can make their children's dreams come true without wiping out their finances or their retirement. For over 20 years, he's shared his expertise and insights through his private practice as a blogger and host of the Taming, the High Cost of College podcast, and as a presenter at numerous workshops and seminars. You're going to really enjoy this episode, especially if you've got kids that are fast approaching college age. So let's go ahead and jump right into it.
My name is Brad Baldridge. I'm chief podcaster and bottle washer at tamingthehighcostofcollege.com.
Speaking of the company name and what you all do, really, that's my intrigue of wanting you to be on the show. I think your topic is interesting. And as we're at least recording this, there are a lot of families across the country that are gearing up for their child going to college in the fall. One of the things that I found intriguing is that it seems like, from what you've described, that there are maybe some things that are different for business owners and planning to pay for college. So is that true? And if so, can you talk a little bit about that?
What I think is challenging is there's lots of stuff to do around college. And, specifically when we're talking about late stage college, which means you've got kids in high school and you're trying to figure it all out. There's things that everybody does to visit colleges and, fill essays and applications and financial aid. But then business owners have an additional layer where they can now say, well, I can control my income to some extent. So what should I control it to based on financial aid, based on how I'm going to pay for college? Business owners can set up tuition reimbursement plans in their business and then potentially reimburse their own children. Business owners can hire the kids in the business and, do some tax savings. That's common just for tax, but it also works very well for college. So business owners have to do everything everybody else does, plus more. Another big thing that has come out just recently and is probably going to be very confusing on the internet, because up until this year, the value of a business, if it was a small business, was not reported on the FAFSA. Starting with this year, right now, people are filling out a FAFSA, this year, and they do have to report the value of the business. And that's a big change for business owners and can have a pretty big impact on how their financial aid may turn out, depending on the value of their business and how they value their business, right? Because that's always a big thing too, right? Our business is worth tons when we're looking to get a mortgage or do something like that. Well, when it comes to the taxes and that type of thing, then it's not worth much at all. And so we got to work with our accountant to make sure we push it in the right direction at the right times.
That's interesting about the valuation of the business to be included. It seems like it could lead to being much more subjective in nature, as you described, right? As someone's maybe trying to maximize the valuation for maybe getting a loan for a mortgage or something. And in this instance, maybe looking to minimize valuation. So what does that look like? What are you seeing? I mean, I know it's brand new. So, what are you seeing out there? What are you advising, or maybe not advising, but seeing others do or thinking about doing?
Right. Well, and it's kind of the same things around, other times when we value a business, but you want to do something that's reasonably fair, but also on the low side, right? And then most of the time you can value a business 3 or 4 different ways. And you say, well, this way it comes out, at 200,000, but if we do it this way, it comes out at 150. If you do it this way, it comes out at, 75. Well, obviously you take the 75 if you feel it's accurate and you can stand on it. And the reality of it is, in the college area, there's not a lot of experts that are going to come back and say, the way you valued the business, this isn't the right way to do it. We think we should do it some other way. When we're working with the IRS and the banks, they have their own experts on their side that are also getting involved. But when it comes to the FAFSA, right now anyway, the colleges certainly don't have a way to truly audit what's going on. Now, you need to be fair, and again, there's a lot of penalties involved if you're, fraud. We're not saying let's do fraud, but what we're saying is understand the rules, right? I mean, what is the value of a plumber who has a truck and some tools and a phone number? I mean, potentially zero, because you can essentially say, well, this is the value of the business to somebody else, not to the plumber himself, right? So if he's going to sell his truck and his phone number to somebody else, would anybody buy it? Or would they say, well, no, I've got my own truck, my own tools, and my own phone number. I don't need to buy yours. There's not much to buy. So while it may be a great business for that plumber because he's got all the relationships, if he were to sell it, he's the key in those relationships. So they may not be very transferable. So you wouldn't value those, as an example, because it's a value, kind of a fire sale value, not I'm going to work with my son or my heir or whatever, my apprentice. And, over the years, we will transfer that relationship. Then it would be worth much more, but you don't have to value it that way.
What do you think the purpose is of that being included? Why does the estimated value even matter for a FAFSA or college application?
To look at the big picture. So the FAFSA is the form you fill out in order to qualify for need-based financial aid. So if your income is low and your assets are low and you have no money, well, then obviously you need a lot of help to pay for college. If your income is high and you've got $1 billion in the bank or something, well, then obviously you don't need money to help pay for college. And it's the typical 18-year-old rolling out of high school and going off to college. They don't have any income and they don't have any assets. It's based on mom and dad mostly, because while the student is included, most of the time we put zeros in their blanks or something very small. So everything kind of focuses on mom and dad for the typical 18-year-old who's dependent on parents. So because of that, they look at the assets and they look at the cash flow and they look at some of those things by pulling your taxes as an example. So another interesting change is for your income, they take your AGI off your taxes. Well, if you're a small business owner and you contribute to retirement and they can see that on the taxes, they'll add that back in. So again, the basic self-employed plumber earns $100,000, but he decides to put $20,000 into a retirement plan. So on his taxes, he only has to pay taxes on $80,000. The FAFSA will look around on the taxes and they'll say, oh, look, he put $20,000 into retirement. We're going to bump him back up to $100,000 and use that. Whereas a W-2 employee who puts $20,000 into retirement, now their W-2 gets smaller. Colleges don't see your W-2. They just see your taxes. So they don't know that you put it in, so they don't add it back in. So if that plumber is married to a teacher and they can choose to put $20,000 into the plumber's retirement plan or into the teacher's retirement plan, who's a W-2 employee, well, then they probably should use the teacher plan for financial aid purposes. There might be other reasons to pick something else, but so that's kind of the give and take that we're constantly working on of, well, if I did this because my accountant said it would save taxes. Well, yeah, that's true. It saved you $1,000 in taxes. It also cost you $3,000 in financial aid. So let's find that balance. Or maybe there's a third option where it will have both tax and financial aid benefit. So that's where we kind of get into, there's a lot of little tactics that you can potentially use. And because you're a business owner, the list gets longer because you have control of your taxes, you have control of your income. Should I take this bonus this year or next year, that type of thing. You could hire the kids into the business. Like I said, you can control your net profit. This might be the year that you do a major investment into something that will bring your income down in the short term, but maybe be good for your business in the long term. And you might time that along with college, as an example.
You were describing some families where they have high schoolers, right? Maybe a junior or senior, and this is not only on the horizon, it is walking into this, right? Just thinking of this strategically, most of our audience are either business owners, franchisors, business leaders, and they're likely in this situation. Maybe some of them, their kids are grown, but I know a lot of folks that are dialing in, they're probably in this space or very close to it, myself included. I've got 3 on the way heading to college in short order. And so just thinking about someone who's saying, okay, well, Brad, I like this. How can I start planning?
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about the timeline, because I think that gets confused where college planning starts with, oh, hey, we're pregnant. Should we start saving and investing, right? That's where, sometimes people will start. But even if you've done a great job in what I call early stage and you save a bunch of money and you have all these, savings and investments set aside for college, when you get there, you still have a lot of planning to do, because now you're picking a school and figuring out how to apply for admission, for financial aid. You're, trying to figure out what the student wants to be when they grow up, and they've got to write their essays, and there's a lot to do. You're visiting colleges, even if you have a big pile of money or you don't. So that's kind of the first thing. And that takes time. So the late stage, when do I visit colleges? And well, as early as you reasonably can. So, sophomore year is not too early, in my opinion, to start heavy lifting on college planning. It allows you to spread things out a little bit, and then it isn't such a huge crunch because it's getting a lot more complicated. So if you look at what goes on, right, there's just things that the student does. The student hopefully picks out what they want to be when they grow up. They pick a major. They start thinking about what kind of school would be a good fit and that type of thing. And there's things you do together. Most of the time you visit colleges with your student. Most of the time you lay out some plans and do the research together and kind of work together on many things. And then there's some things that kind of fall on the parents, which is, will we qualify for need-based aid? Will we qualify for merit aid? What's our reasonable budget? I mean, are we willing to spend $50,000 a year? Are we willing to spend $90,000 a year, which is what the most expensive colleges are today? What does our state schools cost compared to our other choices? And kind of figure out, well, what is our budget and how are we going to be fair among the kids and that kind of stuff. So that's the division of labor, so to speak. Now, getting started on that, as soon as your student is mature enough, you work with the student, right? So some sophomores, they're just not mature enough. They're not thinking of college. It's not really their thing. But some kids are going to do that. And if you've got a student that's saying, I want to go to an exotic top-end school, and I'm thinking about Texas and California and Boston and somewhere in Florida, and I'd like to go visit all those places. It's like, oh, well, that's a big project. That you're going to need some time. You're going to schedule time off of work. You're going to be traveling and flying and doing all kinds of things. Versus the kid that says, well, college isn't that important to me. I'm just going to go to the local state school and be happy. Well, okay, that's a different path. So, but then the question needs to be, well, are you sure? Should we look around first? And then before we just default to that, there might be a better fit out there. And again, that's another decision around how this all can come together. But for the really strong kids, that are academically rigorous and they want to go look far and wide, that can be another reason that there's extra work to do compared to the kid that is going to pick between 3 or 4 of the local state schools. So that's, again, kind of the process. As a business owner, you have to layer on top of that of, well, will I qualify for need-based aid as I stand now? But there's also, well, what can I do in the next couple of years to maybe make it better? Because if you have time, they look at the tax year that starts your sophomore year and ends your junior year of high school. So as an example, if you have a 2025 graduate right now, which would be a junior, they're going to fill out the FAFSA in the fall of 2024. So a junior right now is going to fill out a FAFSA this coming fall, and they're going to use 2023 taxes. So if you have a junior right now, well, the die is cast as far as taxes is concerned, unfortunately. And this is why I'm mentioning you need to start early, right? As a business owner, you look at your taxes and say, oh man, I could have, and I should have, and I might have, but it's too late. I should have done this a year ago. So that's, part of the process. So starting earlier, most people need to start much earlier than they realize, especially, again, when you've got control of things and you can adjust things. There's various lines that you maybe don't want to cross. There's a certain income and it's relatively low. So lots of families would say, well, we're not ever going to get that low, but somewhere between 50 and 75,000 typically. If you can stay below that, you may get a maximum Pell Grant, which is a $7,500, $73.95 right now. It changes every year. But if you can slide under that line, well, then you qualify for a maximum grant. And as a business owner, you might say, well, I think I'm going to try and slide under that line. Or there's another line between 160 and 180. Some of the tax credits phase out. Maybe you stay under that line. Or at 400,000, you start losing the credits for children. Maybe you slide under that one. So at every income level, there's some potential planning, and just understanding, where they are and how it works for the business owners can make a lot of sense. And then also the value of the business. And then, of course, we've got the successful business owners. That's the unfortunate thing of, well, if your business is worth $1 million or $2 million and there's not much you can do about that, that alone is going to make it difficult. But if you're running a business that's that valuable, most likely your salary is also pretty good. So the successful business owners just aren't going to qualify for much need-based aid. So their planning just has to take a different direction. Now it's tax planning, it's merit aid, it's negotiating with the schools, it's saving and investing. It's all the different things that they can do when they say, okay, well, need-based aid is a lost cause. We're just not going to qualify. More than half the people I work with, we never get need-based aid, but we can still get tens and $20,000 scholarships or more, and we can still save a ton in taxes. And in the end, college is going to hurt, but if we can bring it down a little, that's what everybody's goal should be, in my opinion.
That's a great overview on that. And as you're describing and getting more in depth on it, it sounds like the complexities amplify, multiply. If someone's listening in, Brad, and said, well, this sounds great, but I don't have the time to look into this, or I'm busy running my business, which is what I experience in working with most successful business owners. So how is it that you can help them, or what could they do to, kind of take a first step to start going down this pathway?
That is my business, right? I help business owners and others figure out how to plan and pay for college. And sometimes I'm added to the team, right? They've already got an accountant that they're working well with. Well, we'll work with the accountant and talk about, well, most of the time accountants are like, how do we keep your taxes down? And it's like, well, yes, but now we have to be reasonable, because if we, bury all the money, well, then we don't have a way to pay the college bills when they come, or we're not doing the right things for financial aid by doing this or that. So understanding, that balance, and then working together, whatever that might be. And then if you just want some, we've got free resources on our website as well, where we can, as an example, we've got some charts that show you the price of college and also the average net price of college. That's another important concept for most business owners. Is the average public school is $28,000 and the average private school is about $60,000. Now that's list price. That's total cost of attendance, tuition, room and board, books, fees, beer and pizza. The whole cost for a typical college student. But right off the top, most students are going to get some form of scholarships and grants that will bring that net price down. Now, we've got some information on our charts there where we can look at the net price, where a $60,000 private school at the highest incomes might net $40,000, and at the lowest incomes might net $10,000. Because if your income is very low, you get a large amount of need-based aid, you get the merit aid, you stack it all together. And all of a sudden, if your income is between 0 and 30,000, college costs $10,000. Well, guess what? That hurts if your income is between 0 and 25,000. And then if your income is between 75 and 110, let's say, it might cost 30,000. Again, that hurts, but it's potentially doable. And then if you're at the highest incomes, it might net out at 30 or 40,000. Again, that's doable, but that's kind of the definition of need-based aid, right? Is it they have you pay until it hurts, and then they give you aid from there. So unfortunately, that's the net result of the way the system is built. But you certainly want to get all that aid that you can and understand that some schools are a better fit than others for your particular situation.
Brad, what's the website? Where can they go to find that?
tamingthehighcostofcollege.com. So all our resources, podcast, newsletter, everything's there. So go check it out, sign up for some of the free stuff. And then if you want to reach out to us directly, you can get phone numbers and ways to schedule appointments as well.
Well, Brad, this is a great time in the show where we make a transition and we ask every guest the same 4 questions before they go. And the first question we ask is, have you had a miss or two on your journey and something you learned from it?
I've had many, many misses, right? I've been trying and failing all the time around how do I get to the people that need my help? Because if your pipes are spraying all over the basement, you know exactly who to call. You call the plumber, he comes and takes care of you. If you're got a high school sophomore and you're scratching your head about, well, how's this college thing going to work? Who do you call? Well, you call me. How do you find me? What do you put in the internet that makes Brad pop up? How do you, right? So I've been missing on that for 10 years and I've been, continuing to work on it. But I think that's one of the biggest challenges in my business is people don't know I exist. That's why I'm obviously out there being guests on podcasts and spreading the word. But it's a new concept. So the pluses and the minuses, right?
Sure.
I don't have a lot of competition, but I don't have a lot of people looking for me either.
Well, Brad, let's talk about a make or two and a highlight for you to share.
I've built a lot of my business pre-COVID, especially on just getting into the high schools, which was a challenge as well because high schools, have a lot of nonprofit rules and, being a for-profit business, actually getting into there. And that's when the idea and the business really took off is when I was finally able to get in front of 20, 50, 100 parents at a high school and talk about this stuff and at length. So yeah, that was probably one of the strong steps that I did make where, unfortunately, you're working a lot of evenings and COVID just decimated that. So now I'm kind of rebuilding and trying to do things more online and seeing how that's going to go.
Well, let's talk about a multiplier you've used to grow yourself personally, professionally, or businesses you've run and operated.
So I use a lot of Upwork, which is a platform where you can get freelancers to do things. So, I've got writers and podcast producers and editors and graphic designers and coders and website people and all kinds of different. Recently, I've been looking for a couple of people to help me build some Excel spreadsheets because it's stuff I can do, but it's just tedious. And so anything where I can find to outsource to Upwork, I find to be reasonably effective. The challenge there again is if you need to be able to define the scope of work and define what you're looking for in enough detail that they can understand it and build it. So what I found is you create videos because it carries a lot more information than if you're just trying to type a description or whatever it might be.
That's a great little tip on how to be effective at using a service like Upwork too. Well, Brad, the final question we ask every guest is, what does success mean to you?
More time to do what Brad wants to do. And I think that's really it, is the time, right? Stop trading time for money and build a business that can be self-sustaining and get a little time back. I'm getting old now, all of a sudden, it seems, and starting to think about retirement and what that might look like. And, that's part of the process of, trying to get the business to be strong enough that I can retire from it and have it still be a business.
Well, and before we go, Brad, is there anything you're hoping to share or get across that you haven't had a chance to yet?
I don't think so. I mean, obviously, like I said, we've got a lot of free resources and, this is, just getting people's feet wet and, as Nike says, just do it. for lots of people, you hear this, and whether you like it or not, it's either a lot of work that you're going to do yourself, or you're going to outsource it, or but somehow you need to learn it and do it, because in the end, most families, fortunately or unfortunately, don't say, well, college is canceled because we didn't plan well. What happens usually if you didn't plan well is you sign up for some crazy loans, or some other things blow up or whatever. And then that's when I think a lot of families say, well, this isn't right, that, we shouldn't have done it this way, but we didn't know what we didn't know. So now your listeners at least know there's a lot to learn.
Brad, thank you so much for a fantastic interview. And let's go ahead and jump into today's 3 key takeaways. So takeaway number 1 is when Brad shared that the FAFSA requirement is changing. So as a business owner, the big change is that now you have to put an estimated valuation of your business on your FAFSA application. So that's getting taken into consideration as part of your total combined income, is from what it sounds like. And he said that business owners' retirement plans get added back into their income as well, versus a W-2 employee where it is not. So some interesting changes going on there. Takeaway number 2 is when he described and talked about that the average cost for a public school, all-in cost, is around $28,000, and the average cost for a private school per year is around $60,000. And he said, while that gap can be large, he said the big thing you need to look at is what is the net price. And oftentimes, private schools provide all kinds of student aid and financial aid and other forms of tuition reduction to help reduce the total cost of college. So he said, look at the net price, not just the total price of school that goes into that. Takeaway number 3 is to be prepared to think creatively with how you help cover the cost for college. And he said, especially if you're a parent that has a child that's close to being ready for college. Maybe they're a sophomore in high school, junior in high school. He said, thinking of things, for example, to have a tuition reimbursement program at your company that you can employ your child and have that as an opportunity, and other unique things that it sounds like Brad is able to help come up with and share. And now it's time for today's win-win. So today's win-win is right at the end of the episode when Brad started talking about what you can do as a business owner and a parent that's about to have a child go off to school or maybe preparing to go to college. And he said the important thing is to get information to learn about how to pay for college, get the plan, and be prepared. From what he described, it sounds like he meets with a lot of folks that have students that are juniors and seniors in high school, and it's almost too late at that point for him to really be able to help them. So planning early and reaching out to get a plan, especially as a business owner, to understand what options you have available to support and cover the cost of paying for college. And that's the episode today, folks. Please make sure you subscribe to the podcast and give us a review. And remember, if you or anyone you know might be ready to franchise their business or take their franchise company to the next level, please connect with us at bigskyfranchiseteam.com. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to having you back next week.